We're here. It's
We're
happening.
live.
We're live, everyone. Coming to you I'm from Michigan. Where are you from, Skye?
I'm from New Hampshire.
Amazing. While we wait for some people to start trickling in, I guess we will do full introductions of ourselves. I would also first, let's just point out how Skye and I, oh, it's over here, both wore our bee shirts for you.
Yes.
Bees have absolutely nothing to do with migraine, but we ironically have a few matching outfits. So
Yes, I love bee everything. I've actually never been stung by a bee.
I
So there's
have
a
one
fun fact.
time, 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Thankfully, I'm not
Agreed.
allergic, but never want to repeat that experience. But okay, we have a comment section, everyone. So if you want to put where you're commenting from, Skye and I would love to know if you live with migraine. If you live with migraine, ask us questions. We would love
Mhm.
to answer them. So Skye, why are we here today? Who are we? What do we do?
Oh, well, we are the hosts of the Mighty's brand new podcast. Well, the first season of our new podcast, Health and Unwellness. Our first season is called Mighty with Migraine, and
Wait,
Kat and I.
back up, back
Mhm.
up. Health and wellness.
Oh,
Why? Why did we name it that?
well, okay. So, when there's that genre of podcast or just like media in general, and it says like, oh, health and wellness, and it's like Goop Lab and like all that other nonsense. So, this is health and unwellness because health looks like a lot of things to different people,
Sure
especially if you live
does.
with a chronic illness. We'll never be like, I know I, for one, I will never be healthy in the traditional sense. But so I'm healthy in my own way.
Ditto. Ditto. So yes, health and wellness, and I cut you off, but we are the co-hosts of Mighty with Migraine. Health and wellness, the way it's structured is each season is dedicated to a different condition. Migraine seemed like a great one to start with since Skye and I both work for the Mighty and we both live with it. So we
Mhm.
want to talk a little bit about our experience today. We had asked some people who were coming to the live some topics that they wanted us to talk about, but also pop your questions in. We'll answer those as well. So Skye, tell me, you live with migraine. Tell me a little
Oh,
bit about that.
sure do. Yeah, I've been living with this bad boy for gosh, over 13 years now. Pretty sure I got it from my mom who also lives with migraine. Shout out to Paula. I know she's out there and watching.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for
Hello.
coming.
Oh, my personal favorite person with migraine in the world. No offense to anybody else, but like she's my mother. I love her dearly. But yeah, so been living with it since I was a teenager. My mom was actually the one who identified that it was migraine that I was going through because all of a sudden I was at this I did chamber choir in 8th grade, competitive choir. Pretty cool stuff. I was an alto.
Super cool. I can't sing worth a darn, so love that for you.
Oh, thanks. It's just like within groups of people. And I also just had like the deeper voice than any other girl my age. So I, fit in.
Fair.
But yeah, we're at this yard sale and all of a sudden my left eye just went blurry. I couldn't see anything. And of course, when that happens, you start freaking out a bit. And I told my
Sure
mom and
do.
I was like, yeah, those trees are really blurry. What's going on? And my head really hurts. And she's like, sounds like a migraine. And immediately like has me sit down, gives me her sunglasses and is like, chill out. And then just like people, we're being kids around being loud and everything. And my mother, love you, Paula. And she's gonna be like, don't talk about me like this. But she was like, you got it, like, keep it down. Skylar has a migraine. Like, don't you understand? And so she's been advocating for me for people with migraine for as long as I can remember.
We all need
Uh
a migraine cheerleader like that. The people who tell others to keep the noise down, to keep the lights out, to make your home a
yeah.
vampire cave. We all need those people.
Yeah, she's the one who taught me the ropes and then, brought me to the doctor, where I was like officially diagnosed. Oh, she
What
said,
were
I love
you
you. Love you too, mother.
what were you officially diagnosed with? Is it chronic migraine?
Yeah, so it's been a journey. So I think it was like episodic at first, or people always just or doctors always just said like migraine. Um and I actually never really thought of it as chronic, even though I definitely wake up with like some form of head pain every single morning.
Ditto.
Yeah, and so a lot of the time it turns into a full migraine attack, but you never know. Sometimes it's just like a tension headache, just spicing things up.
I
Um,
think this would actually be a really good time to pause. I know that Sky and I, we throw out a lot of migraine terms because we talk about it all the time on the podcast and in our lives. But so two terms that are really good to acquaint yourself with. There are kind of two classes of migraine. There's chronic migraine and there's acute or episodic migraine. Sky, can you tell me the difference?
yeah, because this we only like heard this from a neurologist on the show recently, and our minds were blown. So you have chronic migraine, which is 15 or more headache days per month, and at least 8 of those days, also those headaches also have migraine features. So it's not just, oh, 15 days of a like full blown migraine attack and everything. It's 15 of those headache days at least or more, and then at least 8 of those have migraine features. And then episodic or acute is 14 or fewer uh per month, headache days per month.
And I think those like characteristics and qualities are important to highlight because, insurance relies a lot on that. And I think that keeping track of, your migraine attacks really helps in terms of determining how much it's affecting your quality of life and then also whether your condition is getting better or worse. So, should I tell a little bit
I was
about
gonna say,
migraine
Kat,
story?
let's talk about your migraine journey.
Okay. I was diagnosed slightly later, just a few years after you were, in terms of how old I was. I was 15. I won't go too much into my medical history that's not related to migraine, but I had had a bad infection in my ear and my skull and my brain. I was given an antibiotic, unfortunately got poisoned by the antibiotic and don't have a vestibular system anymore, which means that everything around me bounces and I have no concept of where I'm navigating in the world, but that led to chronic migraine, which I understand is a very different experience, right? I had a medical trauma which caused my condition. I also have a genetic predisposition to migraine. Genetics are a huge part. I was actually like all the guests we have on this season, really fascinating to hear their migraine stories, that they live with them, and then also how many people and their families are also diagnosed with
Mhm.
migraine, which I feel like is really common, as is the disease. Migraine is so darn common.
Yeah, what is it? Over 1 billion people globally live
Hmm.
with migraine?
One in four households are affected by migraine, which is that's a lot. And then it makes me really sad when I think about it because then I realize how misunderstood and just
Mhm.
how much farther we have to go when it comes to smashing stigma. So yeah,
Yeah, which is
that's a
partially what we're here to do with this podcast series.
it is. So one thing we've also been talking about and didn't recognize, Sky, is why do we keep saying migraine in the singular?
Oh, well, this is something that Kat, you taught me when I started working at the Mighty, because I used to say, oh yeah, I get migraines, I get whatever. Oh, but folks, let me introduce you to like the world changing difference when you start saying migraine singular, because you're acknowledging that it is a debilitating, frankly, neurological condition, not just a headache, as we're probably all tired of hearing. Migraine singular recognizes, yes, it's this condition that's so multifaceted and affects everything, not just your
Hmm.
head. Um, but yeah,
And
like you,
it's interesting what happens to your own
yes.
perception of living with the disease when you start saying it in singular. It's wild what happens when you start talking to others. It can be a really, really hard switch to make because I think that migraines is absolutely the common referral to it. I really like having that conversation with healthcare providers. I noticed that some of them have really started to adopt migraine singular, and, I'd like to model that with the people around me. And it just helps you, I don't know, frame migraine can be all consuming.
Mhm.
And I think it's okay to refer to it in a way that denotes that it's all consuming.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because Kat, you and I both live with other health conditions
Sure
too,
do.
and I never would say like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting a gastroparesis or something." Like I would never pluralize any of my other conditions.
Welcome to my asthmas. I don't have asthma, but I think that that is always a good example to me
Mhm.
when referring to it. So let's talk a little bit about migraine symptoms, the types of migraine that are out there. There are so many, everyone, and
Oh yeah.
everyone's experience is really, really different. So, Sky, what are some typical symptoms that you get when you have one?
Oh, well, we got you can tell, like, because Kat and I work together, just the number of meetings I've shown up to with sunglasses on and in like a dark room.
I
I
love
get
that
that
for you. It's great.
thank you, that photophobia, where the sensitivity to light can't stand that. And then, of course, like head pain, I get horrible nausea. I used to have really bad episodes of vertigo. It's one of those things where like I used to get that with like every migraine attack, and I'm kind of waiting for that to happen again.
Hmm, hmm.
We'll see, because it's an ever changing condition, folks.
It is. It
But
changes
yeah.
over time for each individual person. I feel like Sky, yours has definitely fluctuated.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Has
It's
it been
gotten
worse lately?
worse. Oh yeah.
Yep, yep. Well, I am hopeful for the day when it's not as worse for you, but I think it's that makes a lot of sense, right? Like as we age, as other health conditions come up, as we go to work or don't go to work, go to school or
Mhm.
don't go to school, have a family or not have a family, like all of those things really influence where you live.
Yeah.
Weather, Sky, my favorite migraine topic, which just happens to be my absolute biggest trigger. So that's really interesting. Do you live with aura?
So I used to, like, when I first started experiencing migraine symptoms like that, my vision went blurry. I used to get an aura with almost every attack. And then I don't I don't know what happened, but once again it kind of like grew out of that. And then the vertigo happened instead. And then that kind of changed too. So now I just get a lot of like what I think are unrelated symptoms. And then all of a sudden, bam, I have a migraine attack. And I'm like, oh, I guess they were related. How about you? Like, what are your symptoms, aura, non
Yeah,
aura?
so I think it's first important to realize that so technically a migraine is four different stages, and you won't necessarily experience two of the stages in the middle. So you have the prodrome, so kind of everything leading up to it. You have an aura, which is like visual disturbances, can also be your smell being off, or sometimes sounds are a part of that. You have the headache phase, which again, not everyone lives with head pain. For
Hmm.
instance, vestibular migraine. A lot of people who live with that don't actually experience pain. What about silent migraine? Actually, a thing. You don't actually
Mm.
experience any pain at all. And then you have the postdrome, which in some ways can be my least favorite phase since it can last for days, which is the migraine hangover. So, in all of that, I would say my biggest symptoms are nausea by far, which is my least favorite symptoms. Head pain for sure. I have really, really bad photophobia. I pretty much keep all lights in my. This is an exception because I wanted to make sure everyone could see me, but I
Hmm.
often have all the lights in my house off. And then if I'm really bad, I will experience like sensitivity to sounds and smells. But most of the time, smells don't really. They don't really do
Oh,
anything. Also, I lose my
oh,
vision sometimes.
mhm.
It can go off kind of like a thunderclap, or I can like experience spots. So I guess I experience aura sometimes, but definitely not all the time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I forgot about scent. There's so many parts to migraine that I forget could be linked or like could trigger a migraine. Like if I smell too strong a perfume, I used to work at a place where somebody was selling like essential oils all the time. So many attacks were triggered by
You know
these
what's
darn
interesting?
little bottles.
Some people find smells like comforting. Like
Yeah,
I
I
bought okay,
don't.
so I have a couple of like migraine tools around me that I was going to play show and
Yeah.
tell with, but one of them, okay, this is called Yoga Balm, but I think it's just the shop's way of naming it. It's essentially like icy hot.
Mhm.
Using it on muscles and stuff like that, but I actually like peppermint does, or at least I tell myself it helps to calm me down. It absolutely does not help the head pain, but I like rub it on my chest and like intensely breathe it in. But I can imagine that if you are sensitive to smells, you want absolutely none of that.
Oh yeah, I'm always sensitive to scent anyway. Like I don't know why, like since childhood, I always had like a heightened scent sensitivity, and it makes sense make me nauseous really easily. Like I can't be around balloons because of how they smell. Like I
Interesting.
can't, and the texture also. Like I can't, the scent. Ugh. Like I was once in a play where the whole show like involved blowing up balloons and like making balloon art and stuff, and it was 45 minutes of my worst nightmare. But like, I loved being in the show. Don't get me wrong,
The sound of
but
the
his voice,
balloons, that would I think that that's what would drive me batty.
it
Like
was
the
a lot.
squeaking, I don't do well with squeaking. I feel like my biggest smell that bothers me sometimes is gasoline.
That's a
Um,
strong one.
yeah, pumping gas sometimes, or I don't know, just the smell of like turning on a grill occasionally. But I feel very lucky that smells don't bother
My
me.
sister loves perfume, and that's my worst nightmare. I hate it so much.
Yep, yep. I will say, so this is interesting, and I don't know about you. So I go to a special like head pain and neurological clinic, and there are two things that I really like about it. One, they have signs up about smells,
Mhm.
that people with migraine are sensitive to them, and it's not the worst idea in the world. Like they don't allow food in there for that reason. But they have a quiet and dark section of the waiting room.
I love that.
I know. Like
I
when you
didn't
go
even know
in
about
there.
headache specialists until you taught me about that their existence.
Okay, so that brings up another point, which is we asked our community when we were kind of preparing for the episodes, like who diagnosed you with migraine, and I absolutely was expecting a much more resounding yes, a neurologist. But there's
Mhm.
actually a pretty significant percentage of people who were diagnosed by their family doctor, general practitioner. So who diagnosed you?
I'm guessing my pediatrician, and then I saw a neurologist because I ended up seeing. Yeah, I think I was with my pediatrician for a while, and then he was like, "You need a neurologist." And my mom had just found a new neurologist, and she's like, "Ah, come join me." So I did. Yeah, I'm currently. It's so I love my current neurologist so much, but he is a dysautonomia specialist, not a headache
Mm,
specialist at all. And I had no idea how big a difference that would be, or that there is such a thing of like not all neurologists can treat migraine the same way.
I think the nuance, yeah, the nuance is really important. And I think having knowledge about other types of headache conditions, there are so many. Pretty sure the American Migraine Foundation, who is an organization that we love, that we talk a lot about on the show, we're going to have the executive director on
Oh,
episode
so
5. It's
so
such a good
exciting.
one. We just recently recorded it, and so many just incredible things were said that really inspired me and also just very humbled to work with organizations like that. But I think there are over what? 150,
Something.
something like that, headache
Something like that.
conditions, which I think says something, and probably part of why it's so common, so many different types.
Mhm.
I'm curious, Skye, what has been your favorite episode so far that we've
Oh,
done?
it's hard because this is like my favorite, but also the hardest one I think was our episode on mental health and migraine.
Which actually happened to be the most requested topic
Mhm.
for this live stream. So I guess let's talk about it. So I think first of
Cool.
all, just making the statement of if migraine affects your mental health, I think that's an absolutely valid and normal
Mhm.
experience. Certainly affects mine. It definitely triggers anxiety attacks in me, and I definitely have experienced depressive episodes as a result of kind of everything I've had to do and sacrifice in order to live with migraine. What about you, Skye?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like mental illness was kind of like the first health condition to pop up in my life. Now there's so many. But yeah, so like anxiety, depression, OCD, these things, all the demons I know. And then you throw in like migraine on top of that. Ooh, it's been hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Hmm.
been really hard, especially as my experience with migraine has gotten a lot worse over the past several months. It's definitely taken a toll on my mental health. Like I definitely include my, um, you know, like my mental health like therapist as part of my migraine treatment team too, because I don't know what I would do without her.
That was actually, so I know something we talked about. I think it was probably our mental health episode. It was a while ago that we recorded, but I talked about how the first time that I recognized the connection between chronic illness and mental health is when I went to my head pain clinic for my very first appointment. The way they do intake there, it's like a whole half day. They have seminars, they teach you about their practice because they also have physical therapy, and then they also have an entire like therapist wing. And I was assigned a therapist at first. And obviously, it's a personal decision of whether or not you continue with the therapy, but usually most people have at least one initial intake appointment. And I realized then how important it is to talk about the connection. And what makes me sad, Skye, is we did ask our community, like, hey, do you feel like people understand you when you talk about your mental health? Or do you feel comfortable? And a pretty large majority of people say either people don't understand
Mhm.
or they don't even bother to bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, this is like I'm all like jokey, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hard. But yeah, I mean, migraine is such a stigmatized condition. It's historically been considered like a woman's disease, and you're
Hmm.
hysterical. Which, by the way, folks, hysteria literally means like wandering womb. That's why if you get your uterus removed, it's a hysterectomy. Like this is all tied to that stigma. This is going back thousands of years that people have like considered, women in pain hysterical. That's neither here nor there.
Skye is the history buff among the two of us who's always dropping gems like that. So love
Oh, I
that for
just
you.
listen to too many podcasts and I'm like, somebody's going to listen to me regurgitate info I learned. Excellent.
Great. I learned new stuff though. But yeah, I think that the comorbidities between mental health, a lot of people that live with migraine also live with depression, also live with anxiety,
Mhm.
other mental illnesses. When we were recording the stigma episode just yesterday, and the neurologist that was on talked about the fact that we will never make improvements in like combating stigma in healthcare until we start treating people as their whole self. And that I stand when I record this podcast like I'm standing now, and that
Yeah.
really just kind of knocked me off my feet because it's very rare that you hear healthcare providers talk about diagnoses that way. I mean, I've I can't think of many of my providers who some of
No.
whom I really really enjoy have ever really said that, "Hey, we're going to treat your whole self."
Yeah, I think my cardiologist is like the only one who's ever referenced it in a non like it didn't feel like a stigmatizing way. Like my first appointment with him, he's like, "Oh, you got depression?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I mean, I'd be surprised if you didn't with everything you have going on." And I was like, "Thank you. You're a real one." Like that is so true. This is hard. And it was like I think the first time I felt permission to be like, "Yeah, I am kind of miserable like about my
Mhm.
health right now." It was hard. Like I was waiting for knee surgery. It was 2020 and I was like, "Yeah, what's happening?" Um but yeah, it's still a struggle, I think, for me to, like, open up, especially to, like, physical healthcare providers. I don't know.
Mhm.
I've been thinking a lot about how, like, neuropsychiatry used to be its own field, and now it's super not
That's not a
popular
thing.
in existence
I mean, it's a
anymore.
thing, but it's definitely not something that's widely talked
No.
about. And I think about the things like what makes someone not feel like they can talk about it. And I think that for me, the biggest one is just like people not understanding how all
Mhm.
consuming migraine can be, not understanding what it feels like physically, how it affects every aspect of your life. During the season, we break it down to a bunch of different topics. We talk about migraine and work, which again, also a really great episode. We talk about family and friends and dating. Skye shares some interesting stories. Can't wait for that one. We talk about relationships, having a social life or not having a social life.
Yeah.
And I think that, what we're really trying to do on this podcast is just show how migraine just permeates everything. But I think that part of it, that when we really boil it down to its core, is that people with migraine often don't feel like people believe them.
Mhm.
We say we're in pain, but are you really? Skye, I went to the grocery store 5 days ago. Are you sure you live with migraine?
Oh my god.
Yeah, one of my favorites. What are some other misconceptions that really rattle you?
Oh, it's just a headache, like
Go away.
if it were just a headache, I would take an ibuprofen and we'd move
Mhm.
on from this. But like I that drives me bonkers. Yeah, that whole like, well, you did this thing yesterday. And it's like, well, yeah, I was still in pain yesterday, but like now I'm in even more pain because I did the thing.
And there's
Um,
also like sometimes we do have to push through pain. I mean,
yeah,
both of us work full time and live with a very large cornucopia of diseases.
it's
And
exhausting.
it's very exhausting. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because I give up a lot of other things, right?
Oh yeah.
Sacrifice my weekends to mostly get through work during the week because, gotta gotta make the monies. But
Yeah,
I
gotta
think
get that insurance.
and people don't they don't see that.
Right.
They don't see the sacrifice. They don't see, how the fact that like sometimes I can't hold conversations very well, or sometimes I just need people to stop talking to me. How I know talking on the phone can be super difficult for me and trigger an attack. Um, Even being on my computer, like after this, I'll
Oh
definitely have
my
to go and
gosh.
take a screen break. Shout
Yes,
out to anyone out there who has to wear blue light lenses. Do they help you? I would like to know. Drop a comment.
yeah, oh, we didn't even talk about like brain fog as a symptom of migraine too, which is like if people don't live with chronic illness or haven't heard that, yeah, it's just kind of like your brain just stops working at the speed and accuracy with which it usually does.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a symptom that has definitely gotten worse for me over the years. I mean, I've had
Ditto.
2 concussions, hasn't helped, but it's so frustrating and I just feel ridiculous and
And
that
it
makes me
can
really upset.
it can look like a lot of things, right? Like brain fog can look like clumsiness.
Mhm.
For me, my biggest struggle is I really struggle with comprehension. So when someone's speaking to me and they're trying to tell me a story and it looks like I space out, I'm actually just really trying to catch up and like understand the order of events or try and hypothesize where they're going and word recall. Like,
Oh my gosh, it's
I'm a
so
writer,
hard.
I'm an author. Like, I love words. I pride myself on my ability to use them. But if you want me to name the soy sauce in my fridge to use with, a food that I'm eating, I might call it ketchup. I might call it the bottle with the stuff in it.
Mhm.
That's definitely happened to me before. It may look like forgetfulness. Have you ever put your keys weird places? Because I have.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, just like then you find out hours later, you're like, "Oh, I didn't put this thing back in the freezer. Well, gone now." Like it's yeah, it's really I think this series, like recording this podcast series has also been it's been tough in terms of like the energy and time and effort it all
Mm-hmm.
takes, but it's been very interesting emotionally and mentally for me because I'm like, oh wait, it does affect like yeah, like you said, we have the work episode, we have the mental health episode, we have the dating like
Mm-hmm.
relationships episode, we have the social life episode. I'm like, oh wow, like all these things really have taken a toll or like have taken a backseat. Like even the work episode,
Mm-hmm.
oh that one I'm still thinking about, still emotional about because Kat and I have had to pivot to put
Yep.
it mildly.
Yep. Skye and I have left jobs. We haven't started jobs. I think that, I would love to do a whole other one of these to talk about accessibility in the workplace and accommodations. It's something that I feel super, super passionately about. Really excited. The episode that we have about work, we dive into the largest research study ever done about migraine. And I think there were 78,000 people at a
It's
company that
big.
participated. So I'm really excited to break that down, like what that means for the future of migraine. But an episode that was super fun is that we had three other mighty staffers
Yeah.
join us, and we just had like a tip and hackathon.
It was a party.
We shared the things that bother us. We shared the things that help us. And one thing we talked about, I really wanted to bring it up because I am a low key influencer, not
Oh yeah.
really. My most favorite migraine hack, everyone, is the headache hat. Whoop, whoop. And all it is just a wearable headband you wrap around you. Wow, it looks really weird
I kind of love it.
with my headphones on. And it is an ice pack and it is life-saving. It does not break a migraine. Man, for 30 minutes, it sure makes it feel a little bit
Oh
better.
yeah. Taking a nap. Oh my gosh. Ultimate move. Yeah, so Kat has also influenced me. I
No.
own 3 now. Well, 3 and then an off-brand one.
By the
And
way,
I have
yes,
them in
there are many other
yeah.
brands. Headache Hat just happens to be the brand that I like and, you know, recommend to people, but there are all sorts of ice caps and hats out
Yeah.
there.
But it wow, like there's nothing quite like putting in a calm podcast. Okay, I know we're like promoting our podcast, but like The Empty Bowl, if you want like a calm podcast to listen to if noise
Mm.
isn't bothering you during a migraine, it's about cereal and it's like really calm.
Wait,
There's like ocean
like this cereal or the podcast
like
cereal?
this cereal. Yeah.
Ooh. Wait,
It's
how do you
so
have an entire podcast about cereal?
oh my gosh. Well, there's news all the time. I could get into it, but like, oh man, cereal gives me such bad heartburn, but I still love the stuff. But, but yeah, I listen to that. I get my earbuds in, get the headache hat on, and then I put like an eye mask on over it.
Mhm.
Good way to take a nap.
Eye masks are absolutely imperative. I have a like Tempur-Pedic eye mask, which is
Ooh.
amazing. So it's really padded and kind of has like a velvety texture to it. And there are like ridges in it, but I have to turn it upside down because the bulging like ridge
Yeah.
underneath like pushes into my sinuses and I ain't got time for that. So I flip it upside down when I'm sleeping. Blackout curtains. I've talked to other migraine patients who have
Mhm.
blackout curtains. I save a lot of on electricity because I just don't turn any lights on.
Oh yeah, no, it's darkness is great. Sunglasses, love those. I know Kat and I. This is like what we talk about as being a hot topic in the migraine community is like caffeine. I have my Americano here.
That's a question for the folks at home is
Yeah,
does caffeine help you with your migraine? Sky and I, we like it. I actually I forget what episode it was, Sky, but I did talk about how like the first time someone had ever like mentioned caffeine and migraine pain management to me was actually a neurologist. So it's science, everyone.
it is.
Literally, someone who talks about science recommended it to me, and he set two glasses in front of me. One was a cup of coffee, and one was a glass of water. And he was like, "These will be your best friends." And
I love
honestly,
that.
ever since, caffeine has been a huge part of my pain management plan. But for some people, it is a trigger,
Mhm.
and there absolutely is something like that, like caffeine induced headaches. Like you can drink
Yeah,
too much.
and the withdrawal can be rough. I
That.
was so do as I say, not as I do with this next part, especially. But like my freshman year of college, I had never had energy drinks before. I was drinking two monsters and then coffee, like iced coffee every single day. Don't do that. That's bad for you and it'll really hurt you. Don't do it.
The energy, so energy drinks, I just like the taste. I can never get around them.
Well, Monster made coffee flavored ones and they were like really gross, but like I still drank a bunch of them. But don't do that. I'm off energy drinks now
You
mostly.
now have mentioned two things. You've mentioned Monster and cereal that like are good but also bad.
It's so true.
Is there anything else? Electrolytes is something that Sky and I
Oh yeah.
really love to talk about. Personally, I really like Liquid IV. I actually brought my little container in here. They have
I
so
love
many, so
that.
many different flavors, but it does have a little bit of added sugar.
Mm.
And so I know that some people it's a
Yeah,
hot topic.
I stock up on like I love liquid IV, but Gatorade Zero. That way it's zero sugar and it's a
Is it
lot
a powder
cheaper.
or you just
Yeah.
buy?
You can
Okay.
do either. It depends on what's on sale that day for me personally.
Hmm.
But yeah, electrolytes definitely. Like I also have POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I haven't said that whole thing out loud in a while. But yeah, so that electrolytes are a must. I also have like compression socks on and shorts on right now to help with that too. And I feel like that kind of helps with migraine for some reason. Just
I
get
think
everything going.
to me the trick with electrolytes, which is something I like took me several years of like living with it, is important to drink electrolytes for me at least along the way. So when I feel an attack coming on, during an attack, if I can stomach liquids, sometimes it's just not possible, but chugging them through the hangover part.
Hmm.
It really kind of helps me recover and reset. Um, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I always think it's funny. Like my friends and I joke how I drink more Gatorade and like eat more salt and electrolytes than like any any athlete, and I all I do is just be chronically ill.
Yep, totally fair. My favorite hobby being chronically ill.
Oh yeah. Oy.
Well, thank you so much. It feels like a great ending point out there. We appreciate you all for listening. In the chat or in the comment section, we have the episode. See, this is migraine. It's coming on, everyone. Mixing my words up. The link to our first episode, which is called Migraine 101. It's just a really great primer. We teach some of the terms that we're doing here today. Is it down below? Oh, I've
Yeah,
always wanted to do that.
I know. I was like, oh, is it time?
I always watch YouTubers be like, subscribe below. So Sky and
Yeah.
I are go ahead and do that. And then we also, for this is really important to us at the Mighty, we also publish each podcast as a transcript.
Mhm.
We actually got an email from someone. The banner below says if your audio hurts, read along here instead. So you can still get the content and what you want. And we have a newsletter, Mighty with Migraine, that can subscribe to. We talk about our guests, we share articles, all the good stuff, Sky.
Yeah. I'm excited to say this. Yeah, like the banner coming up below, rate, review, subscribe
Uh,
to Mighty with health and wellness for a season, Mighty with Migraine.
yes. And if you are unwell today, we are with you.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Hope
Thank
you
you so much
listen.
for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.